Hello and welcome to this episode of the Alkira demonstration series. My name is David Klebanov and I lead product marketing for Alkira. Today I'm going to demonstrate how you can securely connect partners to your network and allow them access to the shared application services in the cloud. Many enterprises operate an ecosystem of partners that require access to a common set of application resources. Oftentimes, traditionally, partner connectivity was established to on-premises data centers or colocation facilities, leveraging technologies such as IPSec VPN over Internet. Proliferation of this point-to-point connectivity method created an infrastructure resource strain and resulted in limited scalability. To control access to the shared application services and prevent partner-to-partner communication, enterprises deployed and inserted next-generation firewalls along with traffic segmentation. Mapping of IPSec VPN tunnels into the network segments and steering application traffic towards the firewalls created a highly complicated security environment. Finally, as enterprise applications requiring partner access moved from on-premises data centers and colocation facilities into a single or multiple public cloud environments, centralized partner access resulted in a significant traffic backhaul and subsequently suboptimal application experience. For our demonstration, let's look at a specific retailer example. In this case, a retailer requires its suppliers and warehouses to gain access into shared inventory system residing in AWS environment. In the next couple of minutes, I'm going to demonstrate how leveraging Alkira Cloud Services Exchange solution allows establishing distributed network access at two different geographic locations for an optimal application experience. I'm also going to demonstrate how leveraging end-to-end segmentation with cross-segment routing and intelligent firewall service insertion allows to segregate suppliers and warehouses while allowing secure access to the shared inventory system. Lastly, I'm going to show leveraging network address translation or NAT to mitigate IP address overlap for proper routing. If that sounds interesting, let's see how it's done. The first step is log in to the Alkira portal and select the two geographic locations where our partner sites and cloud applications reside. We are taken to the design canvas. The next step is to create segments. We need 3 network segments, one segment for suppliers, one segment for the warehouses, and one segment which we're going to call corporate that hosts the cloud inventory system that needs access from both suppliers and warehouses. Segments are end-to-end, they span the entire network automatically. Let's now add the cloud inventory system. It resides in AWS, so we need to authenticate to our AWS account, choose a region where the workload resides, and select the workload from the list of VPCs. Now we need to specify a couple of parameters such as the network capacity available to the cloud inventory system, the target segment where it resides, and the target group for policy application. Next, we need to add the partner sites. First, let's add the supplier site, which is an IPSec connected site. Let's give it a name. And add a router. Router is connected with an internet circuit. We need to specify the public IP address. For dynamic routing, we're going to choose BGP. And again, we need to specify the network capacity available to that site and the segment it resides in. The group is going to be important for policy application. Now let's add another site in a different location. This time it's going to be an IPSec connected site that represents the warehouse. Let's add a router and specify a public IP address. For dynamic routing, again, we're going to use BGP. Now we specify the network capacity to that site, the segment that connector is in, and the target group for policy application. Now both workloads and sites have been added. Let's now add Palo Alto VM series firewalls. The firewalls are going to be managed by the Panorama tool, so we need to provide a couple of pieces of information. such as an IP address of the panorama tool and the device group. Auto-scaling is important to provide dynamic capacity based on the real-time application demand. We're going to choose the licensing we would wish to deploy and the credentials for the administrative account. For Panorama to successfully manage the VM series firewalls, we need to specify the authentication keys. Let's choose the sizing and decide on which segments are going to be forwarded to the firewall. In this case, we want the firewall to be able to inspect the traffic that crosses the segment boundaries across all 3 segments. Now we're going to define a Palo Alto VM series zones in here and map the connectors to the appropriate zones. We're going to do this for suppliers, we're going to do this for the warehouses, and we're going to do this for the corporate segment where our cloud inventory application resides. This will make sure that the Palo Alto VM series firewall receives the traffic on the appropriate interface. A management segment for the firewall management, and save. Now let's move on to actual application traffic. First, let's define a shared resource. We want to share the cloud inventory application. It resides in a corporate segment and it's available through the AWS connector. That is going to be our shared application. Now let's see who can consume this shared application. In our case, we want both suppliers and warehouses to consume it. So let's start with suppliers. We're going to choose the suppliers. Choose the target segment where the cloud application resides and choose which traffic is allowed to cross the segment boundaries. In this case, it's all the traffic from suppliers destined to the cloud inventory application. Now we want this traffic to be subjected to the firewall policy. So we're going to add this to the appropriate firewall zone. We're going to repeat this process for the warehouses. Selecting source and destination segments and selecting the resources within those segments, the warehouses accessing the cloud inventory system. Again, this cross-segment traffic will be inspected by the firewall, so we will be editing the firewall settings to include that traffic in an appropriate firewall zone. Now both suppliers and warehouses can access the shared application. Lastly, we're going to create a network address translation rule in order to resolve an IP address overlap within the supplier segment. The new rule is going to translate an overlapping IP address space into a unique IP address space in order to allow successful cross-segment routing. We are done.